Welcome to Alpha Wolf Trading. Do you know that there's over 12,000 stocks or companies that trade on the OTC? Between the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, you have over 7,000 companies. But us as retail investors, we wouldn't know that unless we were researching. Because why? Wall Street focuses on the elite, the big companies. And where the retail investor has their advantage is in small and microcap stocks. Why? Because you have the opportunity to speak directly with leadership. That is what this is all about here at Alpha Wolf Trading. We're trying to find the hidden gems, and we interview the executive teams of companies that we think meet the parameters to be those hidden gems. I also want to make sure you understand that this is not a paid for promotion. I collect no compensation for the interviews I do here. These companies that I interview have been identified as potential opportunities for me and the members of Alpha Wolf Trading to receive a higher than average return on our investment. These companies I have identified either because of a technical setup on a chart, a fundamental change within the organization, new management team, new products, all kinds of different things that actually lead me here. But what do I think is the most important? Leadership. And that is why I do these interviews. I want to understand what drives the person that is leading the charge. I want to feel their passion. I want to understand their vision and the strategy that they're going to use to achieve success. That is what these interviews are for. I want to understand the share structure and the cap table, the size of the TAM, the total addressable market. This is the opportunity to learn all of those things. So sit back and enjoy. And if you learn anything from today's interview, do us a favor. Subscribe to the Alpha Wolf Trading YouTube channel. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. I recommend highly that before buying any security, speak to a financial advisor and do your own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with a follow-up interview. Some dramatic changes here, but I think the changes are for the good. I think for potential investors, and I think this is a really fascinating, exciting story. And I've got one of the first employees of HydroGraph here to help us understand everything that's some of the changes that have happened and just give us a better understanding of what HydroGraph does. Kjirstin Breure, right, is here. Kjirstin, do me a favor, give me a little bit of a background on you, right? And how you got to HydroGraph 5 years ago.
Sure. So I have a background or a master's in materials engineering. I found HydroGraph when I was living in Vancouver. I was working for different tech startups, everything from blockchain technology to machine learning. And when I stumbled across HydroGraph, which was then called Carbon 2D, I was really blown away, not only with the actual technology, how scalable and the high purity graphene that the technology could produce, but just the potential impact that nanotechnology can have on virtually every industry. And of course, how lucrative of a project this could be. So I was quite hooked, I would say, from day one.
That's a fantastic way to put it. And I find that interesting because you're comparing it to two of the hottest or some very hot technologies right now, right? Deep machine learning and of course artificial intelligence, all that is the hot word, right? That's the place to be right now. So materials, when you think about it, which not exactly what you would consider high tech, super exciting, right? But actually if you read up on what graphene is, it's a pretty amazing material, right?
Very amazing. I mean, with graphene, you have all these superlatives. It is the strongest, it is the most conductive. I would say some of these are more theoretical. It's sometimes difficult to maintain these traits once you use it. But as we learn and as we grow as an industry, materials like graphene will quite literally bring science fiction to life. We will be able to create stronger materials, more powerful materials. We'll have faster cars, taller buildings, better computing. Really, I think the potential is endless, and we're only scratching the surface on what we can do with this material. And I think a really good parallel is if you can look at the impact that silicon has had in our industries, it's absolutely massive. And to be a bit technical for a moment, graphene can also have a band gap, which is what silicon allows for the computing power that it gives us. So if you imagine, we're not only enhancing energy, we're making things stronger. We can make it more flexible. We can make things transparent. Graphene can do almost everything. So if you're going to imagine just this is such a new industry and so much yet is still available to us, it's a really exciting place to be in.
So, yeah, I'm going to reflect back to the first interview. For those that don't know what HydroGraph does, or essentially, HydroGraph can create with some inputs. They can create graphene, and graphene I did not realize was discovered not. It was actually not that long ago, right? I mean, it was what, 24 years ago, roughly?
Right. So in 2004, it was discovered at Manchester University. And with any new material or new finding, you have to go through that hype cycle. So I think within the 2000s, early 2000s, it was people making it in labs. And then I would say from 2010 to 2020, that was where there was a lot of hype. People were talking about space elevators. People were claiming to make graphene, but it was more like graphite powder because, of course, when most companies are making graphene, they're starting with graphite as a feedstock, and they either chemically or mechanically exfoliate it down to that one atomic layer. Hydrograph, of course, is a synthetic producer. So we blow up or detonate hydrocarbon gases. And in that one step, we, for one, use almost no energy, but we produce highly pure graphene at 99.8% pure carbon content. And that is an extremely scalable process. So we're very, I guess, fortunate to have the patents on this. And it is very exciting for what it can do for the industry. And I think within the next 3 years, we're finally entering that first real stage of commercialization where things are really going to take off.
Okay, so you have some exciting news that you just released. uh, can you tell us what that is?
Of course. So we have just signed an MOU with Khalifa University, and they are out of the Middle East. And just as a bit of background, like I mentioned, graphene was discovered in 2004 in Manchester University, and this has sparked a bit of an ecosystem within the UK. And so there's a fund, the Mubdala Fund, that funded what is called the Graphene Engineering Innovation Center, which is a spin-off innovation center affiliated with the University of Manchester that was funded with this Middle Eastern money of about 60 million pounds. And so this has sparked this whole area with a huge amount of material scientists. This center has all the industrial prototyping machines that companies need. They have all the characterization equipment. And really, I think what this has done is create a huge amount of trust within a system that I think historically hasn't had it. If you're a large company and you want to use graphene, you want to know that what you're getting is real graphene. You want to know how to use it, and you want to make sure that it's going to do what the company that's selling it to you is saying that it can do. So companies, when they are interested in graphene or nanotechnology, one of the first places they go is to the GEEC, this Graphene Engineering Innovation Center, and they have a whole team of scientists. HydroGraph has their own team of scientists that work exclusively on hydrograph projects, but often the staff of the GEEC get to select, let's say there's a project where Rolls-Royce wants to have some anti-corrosion property for an engine. So they might go to the GEEC, and then the team would say, this material from this company is the best suited to exactly what you're looking for, because not all graphene is the same. There are many different types, and different types of graphene may be more or less suitable for different applications.
Okay. And so my question to you would be, are you able to make the different types of graphene that they would be looking at?
Yes, we are. So we have different ways to control our production process. So we can, in that explosion, make different types. And then also, after we process it, we can make further derivatives, if you'll say it like that. So we have these developments where we're now shipping graphene both to the Geek, where we do some of this application development work, and now also to Khalifa. So now, HydroGraph is fully engaged with the two largest graphene hotspots within the world with most of the commercial interest. So, we do think that this is a big catalyst for the company, and we do expect to announce some commercial news within the next few months.
So that's very exciting. So, for those that are wondering that have been following the story and maybe we're expecting a different face to show up, there have been some changes in management there. That happens. Stuart has left for personal reasons and wish him the best and all of that. I'm super excited about the fact that you've been with the company from the very beginning, because you know everything that has gone on, and you're well versed in the product, obviously. Um, I there was a strategy when when Stuart was there, that you were going to be building these facilities on site of potential customers, and where you're having controlled explosions. And I mean, it just sounded like for me, I'm super interested in this story because I think the material, we don't even know all of the applications. We can't know all of the applications for the material itself, right? Because it's that new. So it's like the world is your oyster right now, as far as I see it. But building these capital, and they're not big. I understand that they're not big. To me, it just seemed like a lot of risk of putting these things on people's properties, having controlled explosions, and it seemed like a very capital intensive way to grow market share, as opposed to just creating the powder, the graphene, and then finding your partners, right?
I agree. I think that though economically our story is very strong, it still is going to add to the cost. And I'm hesitant that many customers would truly be interested in that model just because of the controlled explosions that would need to be managed, even if they're managed by hydrograph staff. I think that there are a lot of obstacles that we'd have to overcome to make that a really viable business model. What I am proposing is that we move towards a more centralized facility, and we'll likely need to have one in each continent, of course. But really, if you're thinking of what the company needs, it is much easier to ship graphene, just a carbon powder, than it is to ship volatile gases. So that model has us kind of stuck to these acetylene cylinders. It is more expensive. There's a lot of engineering challenges to overcome. What we should be doing is locating next to acetylene pipeline supply. We have abundant acetylene, and more importantly, it can cut the costs significantly. And so, if you're thinking of gases, most of the cost in gases is packaging. So why would we be paying so much for something that is not only really difficult to use and ship and store, tons of restrictions, tons of regulations, when we could, which we are engaged in many discussions with large gas companies where we can have that supply security and really, really lower our production related costs. So I'm very excited to move that forward. I think the team feels quite strongly. And again, I don't think it was a wrong business model before. I think that it makes sense in a lot of circumstances. If there is a deal that we land that is DoD related, if there's a very large stable customer that has to have that supply chain security, of course we can do it. And of course it might make sense there. But I think overall, if I'm looking at the market and if I'm looking at what's best for the company, including keeping our IP secure and maintaining these explosions, which I think should be our responsibility, I think that only makes sense in a few use cases. I don't think that should be the blanket business model.
I could not agree with you more wholeheartedly. I am much more excited about this story now than I was the first time, right? Because there were just too many unanswered questions, and I didn't know how they were all going to play out, right? And that means, what am I doing? I'm waiting on the sidelines until I get more data, right?
Right.
So I understand clearly how this is going to work and what costs are going to be associated with that. I'm thinking about insurance. I'm thinking about, I mean, there are real things here that were concerning to me, shipping, all of that, right? So you're eliminating that. What you're saying makes 100% sense to me. Less capital intensive. And then here's the beautiful thing. You still have the ability, like you said, to put the unit on somebody that really wants it, right? I
Exactly.
mean, that is there. It's not going to go away. It's
Mhm.
there. So that's just like an asset that sits there until somebody needs it, right?
Mhm.
The more important thing is you have the what you need, the inputs to make an unlimited amount of graphene. That's really what it comes down to, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's all about the feedstock. I think for most, manufacturing companies, that is the thing that we should be cognizant about,
right,
as well as improving our margins
right.
always.
So a centralized facility. What
Mhm.
would it? I mean, just out of have you delved into what kind of capacity would a centralized facility in each country? What would that be able to produce? Do you have any idea?
And I think this is, of course, always going to be tied to line of sight to these customer contracts, and we have a huge degree of flexibility. So the current units that we're producing produce 10 metric tons per year. But when we're talking about these centralized facility, it would be the intent to upscale them to hundreds of tons or more per year. And again, this is all going to be growing in a calculated way. It's not that we don't need to build this in order to land these contracts, but we do need to be prepared for it, I would say.
Right. So you're in the process. You don't have a facility or a site picked out for a facility, or do you?
We actually do. We haven't announced it, so I might hold on this, but we have a very solid plan internally, and we do expect to announce this shortly.
Okay, so my question to you would be on that, like oil refineries, to build an oil refinery is just
Mhm.
a lot of dough, right? That's
A
part of
lot.
the biggest problem we have in the US. It's not that, it's the
Mhm.
refineries that is the problem with oil, right? Because we don't have enough of them.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different. And I would even point out acetylene is not an industry that is growing. In many regions, it's actually in decline. And that is perfect for hydrograph. And if you include, I mean, it's a beautiful story for most state governments and the federal government. I mean, we have in a way, an oil and gas story, but we're converting it into something that is fantastic for the environment. So, right, left, everyone loves the story. And we have had a lot of support in managing this and a lot of interest from oil and gas companies because, this makes perfect sense to them. And again, when we have these controlled explosions, we produce in that one step 99.8% pure graphene, but we also produce syngas. And so, with the right design and the right setup, the right agreements, we can then divert that gas supply back into their facility and they can use it for whatever they need,
Oh,
your
man,
other reactions.
this is getting better and better.
Yes, it is.
This just keeps getting better and better. This is an exciting story. So it sounds to me like the team is already aligned into this path forward, right?
Yes.
Um, and you just said that you expect to have maybe a commercial application announcement in the near future, right?
Mhm. And maybe to say a few more words on that, I think this goes back to another, I guess, adjustment as we grow as a company. I think that we could have used additional focus towards application development. And now we are very seriously focusing on application development. I would say from November on, when we've begun work with the Geek out of Manchester. And so this ecosystem is great because tons of blue chip companies are going there, and of course, small companies as well, when they want to integrate graphene into their process. And because we have such a powerful material with a scalable production method and such a high purity, when customers are going to the geek, this geek team has to be unbiased, and they really need to maintain that trust and say, this graphene might work and this one might not. And we are very lucky to have performed very, very well within that model. So we're engaged in a few different, potentially very large customer negotiations, and we do hope to announce something relatively soon. Of course, there's not too much I can say at this point, but it is something that is extremely exciting for the company. And just, I guess, to take a step back, when we're talking about advanced materials, okay, it's great. We have this fantastic production process. We have this fantastic material. It can do basically anything, but just throwing it over the fence and telling a large company, hey, we think it can do this. We haven't done much testing ourselves, but we really think you should spend a lot of money, figure that out and let us know. Not to say we were doing that before, but just to really underscore the importance of having that application development data. You have to have that in your back pocket to go to a customer and say, we've already done this in the lab. We know it can do this. We know we can get you a 40% increase in strength. And we know you only need a little bit. And what we've also seen in our work is that our graphene is so pure, you often need 1/10 or 1/5 what other companies need to get the same benefits. And often we're still surpassing those. So our argument now is
surpassing in performance. You're not talking, there's a 5% improvement. You're talking there is a meaningful improvement in performance.
Massive improvements, sometimes triple digit improvements. And again, it really depends on the material. It depends on what feature we're trying to exploit. It can be very different depending on what we're aiming to do, but we are performing very, very well. And not only are we getting these huge performance increases, but the amount of graphene we're using is very, very low. And then if you factor in the strength increase, let's use it as an example, as a benefit, you need less of that host material. So if we can improve concrete by 30%, you could use 30% less, and then we're really at break even. And sometimes it's even a cost savings to the customer. And while it's cool what graphene can do, customers are still hyper-focused on their margins as well. So we need to make sure that we have a strong enough argument, unless we're going for, some DoD applications or areas where it's a little bit less price sensitive. The average application area we're looking at, these are massive volumes, and they are going to be treated a bit more like a commodity. If we're, improving resins or lubricants or concrete, we need to be very cognizant of that value proposition that we're providing. As we generate more data, there's lots of examples I can give where we have very, very good margins, and when customers are more than willing to pay a premium for what we can get them. But that's not always going to be the case. And of course, the larger volume we go, the more price sensitive that application area is going to be.
Right. But just out of curiosity, do you have an average range of where you would like to have the margins maintained, where you would like to keep them?
I don't know if we want to disclose that, but they are very, very healthy.
All right. I get it. I
understand you asking.
So you just did a capital raise, right? Let's close that out. So that is the biggest thing in this environment right now. I can tell you that the small and micro cap market has been getting pounded for 34 months. And with the rising interest rates and the Fed and all that, the biggest fear for any potential investor is, does this company need cash? And if they need cash, they're not coming near you until they find out what the deal is, because the financing opportunities out there are so toxic that nobody wants to go in there, right? So I didn't get to look at all the details on the financing you just closed, but you and I talked before we hopped on, and you've got somewhere around 250 million shares outstanding.
206, I believe.
What's that? Fully diluted, right? And that to me is, it's starting to get to that area that it makes me nervous, right? When you're not generating any cash flow, and that's where I start to get, it's like, okay, well, how many more shares are going to need to be brought in before they actually get to a place where they're profitable, right? And that sometimes can be a very challenging thing for a small company. I think this is a very unique, because you're not mining for this, right? Which is typical of a commodity where you got to go mine it. You're literally creating it. That's what is so compelling and exciting to me, right? Because if the demand, if somebody comes out and says, geez, you know, these can make our battery storage last X amount of time longer. I mean, that's a big deal. I think, you know, stored energy is going to be a really big deal, right? And I think graphene could play a huge role in the shift to EV. Right? I just think there's a lot of applications we just don't even know. I mean, we don't know what this can be used to help solar. I don't know if in solar panels to make the solar panel. There's so many things that go through my head. And I'm thinking that when you're in a position to be able to create this at a 99 point, what did you say, 8% purity or whatever, that's like, holy crap kind of stuff, right? This is like hard to compete with you. Right? Very, very difficult to compete with you. Exciting stuff. So the share count doesn't necessarily concern me. The fact that you're already talking about the potential of, you know, a commercial viable contract, this is where it starts to get really fun, right?
Yes. And we're really looking forward to announcing the work that we've been doing in the past few months. And I will also say, you know, we're extremely grateful for the support that we've had from Haywood Securities and Power One Capital Markets, because it has been a very rough area to be in for a small cap stock. So we're very happy that we do have that continued support. And exactly to your point, of course, it's not great that we've needed to, you know, continue to raise money, and, you know, commercializing an advanced material can be a longer process, but this is going to be the year that it's going to take off, and that share count's not going to matter for long. There's so much potential. I mean, not only again in our production process, but this can touch virtually every single industry that we know. So factoring that in, we're very comfortable with the position that we're sitting in.
You picked a good company to jump onto, huh?
Yes, I think right place, right time, and a lot of hard work. But I fully agree. Fully agree.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, I know you're interim, but if they change it to anybody else, I'm not investing.
I
telling you
appreciate that.
now.
And it is my expectation it will be formalized.
Yeah, I would hope, because who's going to know it better than you? Nobody, right? So
I would also say I do stand on the shoulder of giants. Our technical team is fantastic, and I have, you know, lots of support, but I do appreciate the kind words.
No. I mean, I get that, and I believe you. I think you know the meaning of team, right? You're a team player. But you're extremely smart. Well, yeah. This is exciting. This has gotten really, really, really. This is probably one of the most undercovered stories that's out there right now, in my mind.
I mean, I think every CEO feels that way, but I agree.
This is what I want to do. So you think you've got something that could be announced in the next, right, months or a couple of months.
Yeah.
What I want to do is I want to come back, and when you do have that thing that comes out, and do a follow-up. When do you think, what will it take? Because it was X amount of units that was going to get you to X amount of dollars in revenue, which was then going to get you to potentially cash flow positive. This new model that you're looking at, when do you think that you actually get to see some, what are you projecting to try and get to for at least break even?
Yeah, I think I see it in a bit of a different way, I think, than what has been communicated. I am very confident I'm going to show a path to significant revenue in the next few months. I think that's going to kick in. I'm not saying that we're going to be selling tonnage amounts of graphene this year, but I firmly believe it will be next year, and I'm going to be able to show the path in relatively short order. And it is my expectation that clearly communicating that path is going to have an impact on our share price. So I do think this is a very exciting time for the company. And again, with industries like this, it can be very slow. You're doing so much work internally. And when it takes off, it can really take off quickly. And, with us, we are engaged in so many different, very interesting discussions right now. And a number of them could take off at the same time. And I can't tell you how happy I am to have that problem that I'm concerned about the scale up. But I do think that that is upcoming. And of course, we can build units in relatively short order. So that is not an immediate concern. We can even raise more money at a much better valuation once we do have that proof point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, then look, it's much easier to raise when you have some concrete evidence of
Yeah.
what, right? So, what I'm sitting here thinking about is, you land one big contract for one particular industry,
Mm-hmm.
and what do you think their number one competitor is going to do when they find out that there there's going to be a lot of follow on, right? A lot of chase. That's what I see happening is a lot of chase because we have to get to those performance standards now too, because our product is inferior, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just see this thing snowballing in a very positive way, right? You should be pretty excited. You picked a good one, boy.
Don't I know it?
All right, listen, Kirstin. I'm gonna cut this off for now, and I am sure I'm gonna get a bunch of questions that will be sent to me.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think the path now is much clearer, much clearer. I think much safer, and I think you're gonna start seeing results a lot sooner. And that's all very exciting stuff. Well done, well done.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll be in touch within. Actually, I'm going to count on your IR firm to let me know, hey, we've got something that's going to be meaningful, and we'll come back and we'll do this again.
We'll reach out.
Okay,
Thank
hold
you for
on one
having me.
second. Anything you feel as though I missed?
I think these would be the key catalysts and, issues that I wanted to clarify. So I think we're good here, but as soon as anything changes, I will absolutely let you know.
Okay, perfect. Hold on one second. I'm going to shut this off. Thank you for tuning in to another CEO interview here at Alpha Wolf Trading. Today we had Kjirstin Breure from HydroGraph Inc. Ticker symbol HGCPF. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, why not give us a follow? Make sure you smash that subscribe button because all of those things are very important to us here at Alpha Wolf Trading, and we appreciate you taking the time to do it. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Trading wishes you the very best of success.